Alrighty, so I'm just going to get straight into this today. And today's session is all about the £1,000,000 avatar. So this is all about creating your perfect customer, your perfect client avatar, and designing that client that you actually want to work with. So I'm sure all of us either have or have had clients in the past that were an absolute nightmare, and you think, God, I don't want any more people like that. And likewise, we've probably all had clients or have had clients that are absolutely brilliant. You think, God, if only I had 5 or 10 more of those, my life would be perfect. Well, today, this little exercise that I want to take you through is all about designing who that client actually is, the best client for you that you could possibly want to work with, and then fixing that and getting more people like that. Okay, and if you stay to the end and you actually apply this in your business, your marketing will work better, I promise. Your sales conversions will also feel a lot easier, and you'll stop wasting a lot of time on the wrong people. So if this is your first time seeing me live or seeing any of my content, my name is Dan Sagar from DS Business Growth, and I spend my time working with business owners one-to-one and in group settings to build bigger and better businesses. So I'm doing a lot of things at the moment, ultimately all around strategy, but a lot of things around software and systems to help people build a bigger business, become more efficient. And of course, doing a lot of AI. The previous webinar that I did, the previous live that I did, was all about how to implement more and better AI into your business. And today, we're going to build on that a little bit, not on AI today, but building up that avatar and just giving you other ways to help build a bigger and better business. So you can see on my website, DS Business Growth, that's where to find out all about me if you're the first time here, or if you're watching this on LinkedIn, have a little look around my LinkedIn profile, and there's links to all my resources and guides there. So to kick this off, why this is important to you and what we're going to do today. So essentially, I'm going to walk you through this worksheet that I have here. It's 5 pages, and it will be available to download at the end. But first, before I distract you with the PDF, I'm going to show you how to complete it properly, all the things to think about. And essentially, it's going to help you nail down who you should be targeting, okay? Who are the perfect customers for you, as I said. Who you should ignore, okay, on the opposite side of that, who is not a good client for you, and where your growth really does come from in your business, and how to identify that. And then we've got a little bonus as well. This is the pyramid framework. Okay, so this is going to change how you look at your market, how you look at your marketplace, your industry, your sector, and how you can build that business around the right type of client. And by the end of this, you will know if you're building in the right part of your market. You probably know why your growth so far has potentially felt a little bit harder than it should, and you'll find some things to tighten up immediately, and you'll know what to implement next. Okay, and I am going to give you the free worksheet download as part of that so that you can absolutely implement that straight away. Okay, the reason I'm doing this webinar and this talk, why I think this is important, is because all the time I see really smart, really good business owners providing amazing products, amazing services, working really, really hard, but on some level they're stuck. Okay, and it's not because they're bad at the business or they've never done anything like this before, but they potentially don't know who is that dream customer or who is a good customer for them at all. We all go networking and we hear people say, oh, I can help anyone, but actually that's not always very helpful. But if you say anyone, I can't think of someone. So if you really are specific on who you can help, specific is terrific, as they say. This will stop your marketing from kind of drifting around. It'll stop your offers being a bit blurry and not really making sense. It'll give you ways to strengthen and improve your pricing. Okay, it should help give you better and higher quality leads, and therefore once all that is sorted, your growth can become a little bit more predictable. Okay, and a lot of people try to scale their business before they even get the basics right, or the foundations right, as I would call it. So have a little think. Who are you building this business for? Okay, and if you get that wrong, everything after that suffers. Okay, but if you do get this stuff right, everything can start to work a little bit better. And as I say, I've got this 5-page worksheet which you can download at the end. I'm going to run you through it now over the next 30 minutes or so. We're going to go into this in a bit of detail. I'm going to show you all the steps to go through, why they are there, and then you can download this PDF at the end or using the link in this video description. And you can have all of these answers, and you can work through them methodically. And you can see at the end there, we've got the bonus pyramid framework. Section 1 in our customer avatar. Who are they? So who is our dream customer? And this isn't looking at the business at this moment in time. Now we are looking at the actual individual person who could be our dream customer? Who is that person, that individual, perhaps the director, the founder of that business, of that company that you are looking to target, or who is that specific person? And when we look at who are they, there's a few things that we will take into consideration. Okay. And if you've got different products or different services, more likely, that serve different people, you can do this entire exercise multiple times. So if you've got a couple of really defined niches or sectors, it would make sense to do this exercise in its entirety multiple times. So for the purposes of this example, just now as I run through it in this time, just think of one of those and just focus on one of those for the moment. So who is this person that is your dream client? Okay, and these are the things that you want to think about. Okay, their age. So this could be a really specific age, or it's probably more likely a window. Are they 40 to 50, 40 to 60? Are they teens? Are they young adults? What is that rough age gap that you are looking to target? Gender, male or female, generally speaking. It could be both, but if it's potentially just one, or it's not might just be leaning towards one side, again, it's easier if you can identify one way or the other. If it is truly both, that's absolutely fine. But sometimes if you can target it one way or the other, it can make your messaging a little bit easier. Family status may or may not be relevant. So you may be looking at, have they got kids? If they do, how old are the kids? Are the kids still at home? Have they left home? Are they at uni? Or are they looking with newborns or pregnant families that are expecting? Okay, what is the status of that family? Is it a married couple? Are they new, single? All those kind of things. Have a little think about, again, for your dream avatar. And then their job title. So as I say, are they directors, founders? What are they? It might be that you're looking to speak to the marketing manager, the HR manager, something like that, the designer in the business, the accountant in the business. Okay, depending on the size of the scale of the business that you are looking to work with. So that could be the job title, or it could be the profession that you're specifically looking for. So we can search these job titles or professions later on. And then the last thing on here in terms of who are they, it's important to consider household income. So you may think if you're targeting business owners, what is the potential likelihood household income of that business owner? If they've got a big business and they're taking a larger income, perhaps you're looking at startups, and that household income is therefore smaller. Or you could be targeting, for example, new mums where the husband is in a stable job and the mums are looking to start something else or start something independently of a career or something like that. Okay, think about the household income and that will help you move along. Okay, so that wraps up section 1. Who are they? Who is this person that we are thinking to target? As we move through this, we're going to build up a bigger picture and we'll get more specific. So we're starting on here, all about this person, and now starting to look at this business, and we're going to get closer and closer and start to refine this down. And here in section 2, we're looking at the B2B, the business to business details. So if you are targeting to a business rather than B2C, business to consumer, or D2C, direct to consumer. So if you are a business targeting another business, this little section here is absolutely applicable to you. If you're selling something directly to the end user, as in a customer, perhaps a member of the public, usually through a product, but sometimes through a service, this will be less relevant, or probably not relevant at all to you. So the things we need to think about when we're looking at B2B include the turnover of that business. So are we looking at the larger scale businesses where their turnover is perhaps in the 7 figures, or are we looking at solopreneurs where that turnover is going to be a lot smaller? And again, it's helpful just to have a guide here. I say that I can help businesses between 250k turnover and 3 million turnover. That is a rough guide of the businesses that I absolutely love to help. However, I currently have had clients on both sides of that. I've worked with bigger businesses and I do work with smaller businesses. So it's not that we're locking ourselves in here and making a hard and fast rule. It's just to give us, like all of these things here that I'll talk about, it's just to give us a rough idea of what we are looking for. And the smaller that window, the better. So have a think about how much money that business that you would love to work with is turning over, and then have a sector or an industry that you can, again, think about targeting perhaps more of. So if you are, for example, an accountant, you might think, well, I can help, for example, any limited company or sole trader. Great. But actually, are you really good at working with professional services industries, businesses that are sole traders and it's tradesmen and they've got man in a van type businesses? Is that what you really love to, or really can help, or what delivers good margins to your business? HR advisor is another one. Yes, you can help probably most businesses once they start taking on employees. But again, if you can hone into a niche, into a sector, into an industry, that'll be a lot more helpful for you. And again, you're not necessarily locking yourself in for life here. It's just to give you a guide and help encourage the people who are best for your business, help attract them towards you. And that links into here, number of employees. So again, how many employees have they got? I know some businesses, they say ideal for us is around 25 employees. So this is an IT company that I'm thinking of. A business with around 25 to 50 seats is perfect for them. It gives them enough margin to make it really worthwhile, deliver a really high quality level of service. But above 50, they start to get a bit too big, perhaps too many day-to-day issues that they don't want to be dealing with. So that sweet spot is 25 to 50. That's just an example, and the same or relevant will apply to you. Rolling decision making is a really interesting one here, because if you're looking to speak to HR managers, accounts managers, anyone in the design position or whatever that role is, especially this is really in larger businesses here, has the person you're speaking to or want to speak to got a role in the decision making? So you might be speaking to the head of a department, which is the perfect customer for you or the perfect client for you. However, has that person got a decision making role to take on the services that you are offering to that business? So if you're delivering, for example, training, you might love to speak with the HR advisor, but is that person also the person that will be responsible for signing off on that budget, or does it have to go to director level, for example? So have a think about who you're speaking to and who would make that decision. And again, a lot of businesses, this will be different, but there may be a general rule based on the turnover sector and number of employees, size business that you are targeting. So have a little think about that so that you know when you're having these conversations, oh, do you need to check with your finance manager or your CFO on this decision? For example, you can be asking those intelligent questions that makes you look more qualified. And then the last one on here, years established. So for example, again, I like to help businesses that have been going for a few years and perhaps reached a bit of a plateau or stumbling block with their growth. So I would say normally I will help businesses that have been going at least 3 years. However, again, back to startups and things like that, you may love helping startups. So when you're doing these searches and looking for ideal clients, those years established, the number of years may be very low, or just in those first 6 months, for example. You will know in the sectors that you're speaking to and targeting the common issues, perhaps when businesses reach a certain age or a certain size, and that is absolutely where you can drop in your expertise and make this super, super relevant to you. Moving on then, swiftly moving through this, section 3, goals and motivations. So we really need to start to think now, rather than thinking about literally what are these clients like, who are they and what do they do, we need to think about their goals and what is motivating them. And there's 3 ways here that I would like to break that down to be the most helpful way for you. So first of all now, the personal goals. So thinking about to that person that we were thinking with, how old are they, what's their family status, all that kind of thing. What is tying into their personal goals? Personally, what do those people want to achieve? What have they got their eye on? What does success look like for them? And I says personal here, it's not to do with the business at this point. What does that personally want to do? Are they looking to be financially free, retire at age 55, have a property portfolio that can fund them in retirement? Are they looking to all these kind of things? What are their personal goals? Perhaps it's more time with family, and your product and your service or product can help deliver them more time with their family, more time on holiday, all these things. Have a think, what is your ideal customer's personal goals? And then once you've done that, then you think about those business or career goals. Okay, are they building perhaps a business to sell? Are they building a business where they can remove themselves from the day-to-day? If you're working with people that are working or employed, what are their career goals? Are they striving to get to that director level? Are they striving to take over a business? What are they trying to do? Or perhaps they're just trying to hit their next promotion. Have a think about the goals of all these different people, and then link all of that back to those family and lifestyle goals, which I've already touched on in the previous 2. But that's where you can get really specific on how those family and lifestyle goals. More holidays is a really common goal for a lot of business owners that I speak to, and more time off, more time away from the business. So I think about how can I help business owners to do that and get closer to that goal. So that is section 3, goals and motivations. Moving on now, section 4, and this is where we can start to now link a few of the things that we've talked about together. We can bring these things together and start to think now a little bit more deeply. So the problems and pain points. And the way I would structure to start thinking about this is starting off by listing 3 challenges that your ideal prospect or your ideal client is facing that make them a really good fit. for your offer. So for example, that accountant that I talked about, if they love dealing with tradesmen, a real problem or a pain point for them might be receipts. They end up with lots of receipts, fewer receipts. They buy the lunch out, they buy a few things from the trade supplier. They buy some soil if it's a landscaper. They go over here and buy some more tools. This is broke, we need to go and buy that. And they might end up with just a mountain of receipts. Okay, that's a real problem, painful for them, because they just end up shoving all these receipts probably in the glove box or in the driver's door. And that's a real pain point. Okay, so if you say as an accountant, you can make this really easy for them, or perhaps a bit of bookkeeping there, identifying that a problem will start to get us thinking here. If you're speaking to a business owner and you're perhaps in HR or recruitment and say, oh God, I can't find good staff, and all my staff are terrible, or things like that, you can think about what is causing those issues. Why are the staff terrible? What challenges do they face specifically? And then you can start to think about how you can help them. So have a think about the real problems and pain points. Now, I've covered these points quite quickly, but I just want to emphasize that this is not a 5-minute job. The time it takes me to read through these and explain it through this video, it will take you in reality much longer to actually complete this. And I would recommend at least taking a 90-minute section out of your day to work through this in its entirety. The second thing to touch on problems and pain points. Okay, what are the consequences? What are the problems? Sorry, what are the consequences if they don't solve these problems? So think about the problems that you identified. What happens if they're not solved? What happens if they're not rectified? Okay, so our trades business with a pile of receipt, okay, is he going to end up paying too much tax, not enough tax? Are there going to be consequences of that? Is his paperwork going to get filed late? Okay, the consequences of our unhappy staff and staff forever turning over, people leaving and not staying in business very long. It's going to cost the business owner lots of money in recruitment, all these kind of things. Okay, so think about the problems or the pain points that you just wrote down. And if those problems aren't solved within your target business, what happens if they aren't getting resolved? So what are the consequences to the business owner or to the people that you're thinking about? And as you're thinking about that, you've got to think about here really, really what is at stake. And those consequences, they could be financial, they could be professional, or they even could be emotional. Okay, and people don't remember what you did, but they remember how you make them feel. And this emotional point here is really, really important. Okay, and it's not to be forgotten. So again, as you're thinking of these solutions, what happens if they're not solved, these problems, think about what's at stake, and really across those 3 areas, what the consequences will be if these things don't get solved. Section 5, our desires and ideal outcomes. So this is flipping the previous section on its head and now thinking about our ideal outcomes. Okay, and I would say to that, what does that perfect solution look like for your ideal customer? If they've got all these problems and all these issues that we just thought about and just talked, based on their goals, and all linking this together now. So as we come through the sections, that's why we need to do this in the right order. This whole worksheet, do it in the right order. What does a perfect solution look like to our ideal prospects? If all their dreams are solved, what does it look like? And a good way to look at this is, what would the best in the world do? So there are a number of businesses that use this mantra and use this way of thinking. What would the best company in this world, in this space, do? What is that perfect solution? And perhaps something a little more trivial compared to what we just talked about here, but I know the florist business down in the southeast, and everything that they do, their whole prospecting customer journey is modeled on what would the best florist in the world do, and therefore they can get to that perfect solution. What does that look like for their end client? And it's something as small as perhaps delivering flowers, significant in some occasions depending what the occasion is for the flowers, but thinking about that perfect solution. And it might not be something you can necessarily do or offer right now, but the idea here is to imagine that perfect solution. This might be something you strive for over the next 1, 3, 5 years. It could be 3, 6, 9 months, depending how quickly you can move and funds available and what those things are. But actually, by imagining that perfect situation of what the outcome could look like for your ideal client, it will just start to get you thinking. Okay. And as you get into that next step of thinking, have a look, have a think, what are they really, really looking for? What are they wanting to get out, and what are they wanting to solve and fix? Okay, and then we're going to start to think about how you can help them, but this will get the cogs turning, so to speak. And once you've got that imagined and you thought about that perfect situation and what the client would get out of it and what they are really looking for, you can then start to think, what would they happily pay to resolve this? And this is a really important question, because more and more industries are becoming commoditized, and a lot of people are more competing on price, and that is a horrible, horrible place to be. If you've been there, competing on price is awful, because a race to the bottom, ultimately, I do believe nobody wins. But actually, if you can solve a client's problems in the perfect and best way imaginable, and get them what they really are looking for, usually the answer to this question on the screen, what are they happily paying to resolve this, usually that price is much higher, because if you can truly deliver the best outcome of what they really truly want, they'll probably pay a lot more to resolve that. Okay, so this little session here isn't about pricing, but it is all about just starting to think a little bit differently, and thinking about that ideal client, and getting some, just like I say, a few cogs turning in your grey matter there, and just to readdress perhaps your pricing. We'll come on to that towards the end, but again, you can just make a few notes here on this worksheet. And this worksheet that I have here in front of me, all of this is broken down into the various sections for you. So we've got page 1, we've got our sections 1 and 2 with all of our questions on. Sections 3 and 4, so all the slides I have here, we're breaking them all down. Sections 5 and 6, so this is what we started to look at here. What would that perfect solution look like? Okay, and this is broken down. I recommend printing these sheets. It's really handy when you print them. And then now we'll take a look at section 6, which is our behavior and preferences. Okay, so we're starting to look at the business and the people together now a little bit more, and we're going to start looking at the behavior and what the things that they prefer. Okay, so when we're thinking about our behavior and preferences, the first thing I would start to look at is, what is the ideal prospect's favorite brands or websites? Okay, where are these people hanging out online? Social media we'll come to in a minute, but where are their favorite brands or websites? What platforms are these people going on? Perhaps to do research, perhaps for their day-to-day, perhaps for when they're doing a part of their work. What systems are they using? Where are they looking? Where are they going? And I put brands here again because that helps us start to think where people might start to identify. Okay, we've got the kind of famous Apple, Microsoft rivalry. Your clients might prefer one or the other. It might not make any difference at all, but in some situations it might make a difference. And then you can start to lean into that perhaps. And start to think about these things. Again, our trades examples, they might forever be on the Screwfix website or the Toolstation website, ordering bits and bobs. And if they are on spending time on those websites, again, it can just start us to help to think a little bit more about what their day to day might look like. So it's really important here just to have a little think about where these people are hanging out, just in general online, but then we can start to look at their social media usage. And I haven't included all the platforms here. Of course, we've got the main ones. We've got Facebook and Instagram. We've got LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube. We've got Blue Sky, one of the new ones. Threads, I think we've got by Instagram. Okay, so there's all these kinds of different platforms. YouTube's, I would say, the biggest that we haven't got on this slide. But thinking about where our clients are hanging out is really, really relevant. So, for example, most of my ideal clients hang out on LinkedIn. Hence, this being a LinkedIn Live first and foremost. Okay, my ideal clients, yes, they are on TikTok, probably. They are probably on Facebook, probably on Instagram, but most of the time they're on LinkedIn. So most of my effort personally goes into LinkedIn, and then Facebook and Instagram secondary to that. And now I'm starting to do a few things on YouTube. Okay, but your clients may all be ideal clients, again, ideal clients, not just any clients, maybe on Instagram. So actually that's where it's really worth focusing. And the other platforms, it may not be worth spending as much time on them. If you are spending a lot of time across lots of platforms, doing lots of different things, perhaps by releasing some of those other platforms or just simply cross-posting rather than starting from scratch on each one, will help free up some time. And also the market there, the messaging that you use on those platforms will be slightly different. So a message to put out on TikTok probably isn't the same as Instagram, for example. And it's probably not the same as what you put on LinkedIn, depending on what you do. So it's thinking about all these things again. Where are your ideal prospects, ideal clients hanging out? And where can you be to be at the same place? Another thing to consider is, where are they going for industry news? So if they're not 100% reliant on social media, where are they going for industry news? Are they just checking generic BBC News, or is there a really niche catalogue, magazine, publication, blog, website, community where they're hanging out to get the latest information? This could also be physical as well, like industry events, industry spaces, industry conferences, workshops, where are these people going to keep up to date and keep their knowledge fresh on things happening in their industry. And it's a really good way to think about this, okay? And then the last little bit in here is what is influencing their buying decision. So I just touched on price briefly, but just to build on that a little bit more here, are people in your industry, for example, always price conscious? Is that the biggest decision? A lot of people will jump and say, yes, it is. But actually, when you take a step back and really think about this, price is often not the number one buying decision. Okay, we're all becoming more and more cost conscious, perhaps in our daily lives, but for businesses, it's not always the same. So don't assume that everyone's first decision maker, if you like, is price. People ultimately buy value. Are they getting good value for the amount that they are paying? Okay, and what is going to influence the decision on buying that? So if we're offering services on contracts, perhaps people feel tied in, and that's going to influence their buying decision, because to get out of a long-term contract with another supplier may be expensive. So then it's about thinking about that, and when can we time our approach to coincide with quoting on that renewal, or, for example, it may be also what is being offered to them. So people may only think that the basic package is the only option. And actually they can get something which is a lot more or a lot better, or perhaps they think they have to buy everything, but actually we could just deliver them a bit because that's the bit that they really need. So a lot of beliefs in here that perhaps need to be quashed in your space, and you can help do that. And by doing that, that will bring you closer to your ideal prospect and your ideal client, by knowing the answers to this question. Okay, so that is our first 6 sections there, and that is the bulk of the work. That is the bulk of the thinking. And if you do take this worksheet and print it off and work through it, you may in some cases feel like you need some more space, so you can take this onto multiple pages and really take your time to think about all the answers across all those 6 sections here. Because what we're going to do now in section 7, bring everything that we talked about together by writing a short paragraph summarizing that person's background. And we're really going to focus on the person's frustrations and their person's goals. Okay, so we need to bring everything together and summarize and find the key points that are most relevant now, and bring all that together into our short paragraph, and we can write a little story. So again, on the worksheet here, I've left kind of half a page for this, and you can go into a bit of detail. But as you would have been going through and listening to me speak and doing this again in your own time, there's certain things that you may have highlighted or pointed out as you went through, which were the most relevant. You think, oh, that's a little nugget, that's a little nugget there. So this section here is all about bringing your story together and summarizing that in a really clear, concise way in half a page at the most, where you can absolutely summarize this and see it all together and bring out the most important stuff, the true gold. Okay, once you've got that, you can then start to think, how can your business help? And no doubt, as you were working through this, you think, oh, we could do that, but now you can really start to sit and think, how can your business help people? Okay, and this stops you targeting everyone, okay, and having that really strong avatar. And as you do this, it'll help you write better marketing, you'll be able to craft better offers, stronger offers, and you will truly connect a lot more deeply with the people that you can really help, and the people that you can help well. Okay, that is really important here, thinking about how your business can help and really nailing down that messaging and the offers. And I'll talk more about that in a moment as I summarize and we finish this off. But before I want to do that, I just want to show you a little framework here, which I put in as a little bonus. Okay, and I call this the pyramid framework. Okay, and this is a way of categorizing businesses based on how well they're doing. Okay, from the guys struggling all the way at the bottom to the ones thriving all the way at the top. Okay, and this can be a really powerful tool for understanding your market and then matching your offer exactly to where your ideal customer is right now. Okay, so this is a really cool little framework. This pyramid applies broadly to any sector, any industry, or any geographical area. So we could apply this to, for example, all businesses in Hampshire. We could apply it to all accountants in the UK, or probably accountants in Hampshire. We could apply it to HR businesses in the Southwest. Okay, you can pick a sector, a niche, a geographical area, and this pyramid here will broadly apply. Okay, and this is looking at all the businesses in that sector. So if we look here, For example, at the top 1% of businesses, okay, these businesses are absolutely thriving, okay. These are the really elite, highly profitable, highly systemized, and probably industry leading businesses in your space. So whatever your sector is, you will know who that is in your space. They are the absolute top dog in your space, potentially national in size, but not always. But the guys at the top, the 1%, are absolutely industry leading. Okay, our next little cohort down there is the 4%, and I would describe these as prosperous. Okay, they're doing very well. They've got strong margins, probably a really strong, good leadership team. They're really proactive in their marketing, and they've got a strategy which is super clear, and that is what has allowed them to be prosperous. So overall, there we're looking at the top 5% of businesses in your area or in your space. And then we've got another 15% here who are making a good living. Okay, so these guys are doing well. They've got profitable businesses. They've got some systems in place, probably a small team, and they're doing all right. Okay, these guys, the business owners, are making a good living. They're taking out a good salary, and they're doing all right. And if we combine those top three sectors, we're looking at about 20% of businesses there. So 20% of businesses, 1 in 5. It's actually quite a small proportion overall when we look at the entire space in the pyramid. And this is where it starts to get interesting, because the section in the middle there, 60% of businesses, okay, so more than half of businesses are pretty much good, just getting by. They are in endless financial struggle, okay. Most businesses live here, okay, like it says, more than half. The revenue is steady, it's coming in, but the growth is slow, and perhaps some of them are just beyond break even. And we can tread water for a long time. We can be at break even for a long time. It's when we start moving backwards that things can get towards the end, but we can stay in this 60% for a long time. And that is why it is the endless financial struggle. Okay. We just get a break, but then a big bill just comes in. Something just gets better, but then there's a budget and we just get something pulled out from under our feet. Okay. And that's back and forth, up and down, is where people are. And more than half of businesses in any space or any sector or any location, in generally speaking, are in that space. And that just leaves at the bottom here our bottom 20% of business owners who are probably struggling or pretty much broke. Okay. And these guys are barely surviving. Cash flow, super tight. Systems probably a bit chaotic. Everything's a bit all over the place. And the business owner will be totally overwhelmed, totally exhausted day to day. And at some points, or a lot of the time, thinking, why on earth am I bothering? Okay, and that is roughly speaking. So if we look at businesses in Hampshire, for example, where I'm based, it's probably the case. And again, if we look at that, 80% of businesses, they're not having a good time, really. It's only those top 20% that are doing well and probably leaving work happy at the end of the day, and probably most days, whereas the rest of the businesses there, 80% are in some kind of struggle or flat out broke. So it's really important that as I went, well, two ways actually. So as I went through that, you probably realized where you are on that, and everybody will be on that pyramid or in that pyramid somewhere, and you will know in your own head potentially as I talk through that where you are. But you'll also know where you want to be. Okay, if you are in that 60%, perhaps you just want to get up to that 15%. And if you're in that 20%, jumping up to the 60% would actually be a big relief. So it's thinking about where you are and where you want to be. But that's not what this session is about. We are looking at our ideal clients and our ideal prospects. So asking yourself now, where is your ideal customer on the pyramid? Okay, who are you targeting with your marketing and your messaging? Where are they on this pyramid? Okay, so we know all about them, their story, where they're based, their situation, all that kind of stuff. But actually, where are they on this pyramid? Are they the rich and the prosperous? They're doing really well, and that's where you're going to help them and add value. Or are you targeting the businesses that are broke or in endless financial struggle? Okay, have a little think about your avatar that we just created on the previous few minutes and slides. Where is your ideal customer on the pyramid? Okay, and then the next thing to think about as you're doing that, and as you've identified that, what would move them up? Okay, so all of us watching here and all of our ideal clients and prospects probably want to move up that pyramid. No matter where you are, unless you're in the 1%, you can't really move up there. Perhaps you want to move up to the 0.1%, but generally speaking, most people want to move them up. So have a think, what would move them up? And this isn't you at the minute. What in general would move them up? Having more free time, having more leads, having more customers, having better staff, being more streamlined. What is it that would move that business from 60 to 15 or 20 to 60 or wherever they are? What would move them up? And then start to think about how can your product or your service be a part of that journey, because ultimately, if everybody wants to move up that pyramid, do better for themselves in their business, which ultimately means they can do better for their personal life and their families, get more money into their personal bank account. Think about how your product or your service can be on that journey with them and truly, truly help them to do that. Because if you can, you'll be talking their language, they'll be drawn to you. And if what you can offer can make them better in these respects, that will absolutely bring them closer to you. So I've gone through that again fairly quickly. It's worth potentially watching this twice or just taking this away and having a little think about how that would apply to you, your ideal prospects and your ideal clients. But before I wrap up here and before I finish, I want to talk about just what's next. So that pyramid framework is a way of categorizing businesses based on how well they're doing, okay, from the ones struggling at the bottom to the ones thriving at the top. And it's a really, really powerful tool for understanding your market and then matching your offer to where your ideal customer is right now. So 3 things I would suggest here is finalize your avatar. Okay, so again, in the time that it's taken to watch this video, you probably haven't finished finalizing your avatar. Okay, not vaguely, not loosely. Okay, make it really, really precise, and you'll know you've done it right if that's a little bit uncomfortable. If you feel a little bit uneasy about perhaps what you've written because it's too precise, actually that can be really helpful. And if you can't describe your ideal customer in detail, you haven't finished the exercise. All right. So when you finish that, you can then start to check your messaging. Okay, are you talking to your ideal prospect, your ideal clients? Okay, and your messaging is the copy, the text that you have on your website, on your LinkedIn, it's in your proposals, it's in your emails. Okay, and when you're looking at all this different stuff on all the different pages, okay, that's again not a small job to check this, but as you're looking at stuff and reviewing stuff and checking things, ask yourself the question, would my ideal client recognize themselves here? Would they, as they read a page on your website, would they be nodding, going, oh yeah, that's me. That's me. He's talking to me. She's talking to me. This business is talking to me. You want them nodding along as they read something. Okay. And if the answer is no, you've still got a little bit of work to do. And ask your current clients to check this, by the way. So if you do this work and update some of your messaging, ask some of your current clients to check it, see if it's relevant to them. And they'll actually, your really good clients, the ones that really like you, they'll probably be happy to give you a little bit of feedback there. Okay. And the last thing there, which is the most difficult to do, is to realign your offers. So figuring out your avatar, fairly straightforward. You can do that probably in 90 minutes. Checking your messaging and going through all these different things is potentially a few hours work there to get all that tweaked and sorted out, potentially depending on how much stuff you've got out there. But realigning your offers and doing some proper deep thinking on how to realign what you are actually offering day to day, week to week, month to month. What are you offering to people in terms of offers, perhaps needs realigning and readdressing. Okay, not every service is meant for every customer. Okay, so what you can do is cut out the stuff that doesn't fit your new shiny customer avatar, and you can really refine what does. And this means perhaps you add new products or service lines. You'll take ones out, you'll tweak the ones that you have, whatever that is. It's all about realigning so that when that person that is your perfect ideal customer looks at your stuff, your content, your copy, anything that's out there from you, they instantly relate to it and are therefore drawn to you. Okay, you pull people in, okay, and they're coming towards you. So to get started on this yourself, you can scan the QR code here on screen or go to the resources section on my website, which is dsbusinessgrowth.co.uk, and you can download this worksheet completely free. I recommend printing it out and just a little bit old school, printing it out and just writing it down, getting in a quiet space. If you've got a remarkable tablet or anything like that, it's PDF, so you can go on it and scribble on there as well, or on your iPad with your Apple Pencil. You can fill these out. But yeah, take a little bit of quiet time to work through that. If you've got other directors or other businesses in the other owners in the business, a good little exercise to do is to actually do this separately and then meet together afterwards and compare your notes and see if you've both come up with the same stuff. And by doing it separately first, not influencing each other's decisions as you work through it, each of you will probably find different things that the other person has found, which are super helpful. And then you can combine those and come up with something which is truly amazing, especially when you start to look at those offers and thinking about the things that you could create. So the QR code there takes you straight to the landing page for this. Otherwise, head to my website and you can download that there. But otherwise, I will end this session here. Thank you very much for watching if you've got this far. And of course, as always, if you have any questions, comments or queries, reach out on my website. You can hop on the live chat, and if I'm available, that'll be me coming straight back to you, or you can book in a strategy call. So anyone watching this video who's got this far, I will happily give you 40 or so minutes of my time. We can work through this sheet together if you want to, if you're a little bit stuck on some areas, or if you have completed the sheet, we can look at that together, and I can help you review it, and I can help you pull out those few little nuggets, perhaps that will help you move forward, or just get take that next little step to help you get a little bit more clarity. So book in a strategy call using the link on my website and the link in the description below this video. It'd be great to see you there on Zoom very soon. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'll leave it there. Cheers.